Hey everyone, and welcome to our ENCC D.C. 2025 debrief. What we learned. My name is Ben Childers. I am co-founder and CEO of Stratovation Partners, a growth and expansion consultancy in the nonprofit sector. And I'm joined by a wonderful set of panelists here today to break down what happened at last week's Engaging Networks Community Conference. Going around the horn, we have Molly Kelly from Zuri Group. We have Sydney Moyer from Foresight Studios. Mike Bird is joining us to give us the Engaging Networks angle. And Valerie Kirka is here giving us that nonprofit lens over what happened over the 2+ day conference here in Arlington/DC last week. What you're going to hear a rundown of some of the sessions that Zuri Group and Foresight put on. You're also going to hear some broader thoughts and patterns and conversations that happened in the hallways and outside of sessions, and just folks' main takeaways from what they felt coming out of the conference. Just so you know, we have a live Q&A, so if Restream is working as we think it is, you are probably watching this on one of our LinkedIns. If you make a comment, it should show up over here, and we should be able to answer it. You never know if these things actually work, but we will certainly be checking that out. And we'll be taking that Q&A towards the end here. Outside of that, we are super thrilled to be here, and we will be wrapping up at the top of the hour. This will always be available afterwards on all of the platforms, and we'll be sharing out clips as they become available. But first, Mike, what is ENCC D.C. and how will we spend our 30 minutes here together?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. ENCC, so Engaging Networks Community Conference, like you said, sort of gives it away a little bit in the title, but it's a live conference event that we host 3 times a year in our hub cities of London, Toronto, and DC. And it's an opportunity for us to bring together clients, partners, like the great folks from Zuri Group and Foresight Studios, this year's Platinum Partners, and sometimes even prospective clients, kind of as guests, Engaging Networks. It's an opportunity for folks to build connections and really share learnings, as well as for us as a company to share some of what is new or is coming up on our roadmap, and to take feedback live, frankly, which is a lot of fun to see our product managers up on a stage taking questions and requests in a workshop from the folks who will actually be using the tool. So it's a tremendous opportunity for everyone to come together. And it's often kind of a mix of newer folks. We had some folks joining us this year who are actually in the process of onboarding right now in the Engaging Network, with folks who are maybe 1 or 2 years in and are sharing some of their first new creations digitally on the platform. And then you weigh that against folks like Liz Walsh from Human Rights Watch, who's attended 10 ENCC D.C.s, which is just phenomenal. So it kind of speaks a little bit to the staying power of the event, and maybe feels a little bit more like a reunion for some of those folks. Yeah. But because we are a pretty client-centric organization, it's an opportunity for us to really be a good convener, and we're very fortunate and very grateful for the opportunity to do that. Over the course of the next now 27-ish minutes, we're going to give the stage over to Molly and Sydney, especially, to share some of the highlights that they saw and encountered. We're going to share some joint takeaways. That is going to transition over to kind of zooming out past the conference and looking at just sort of the sector writ large. Valerie is a nonprofit pro herself and will kind of lend a neat voice to that. And then I'll also share kind of the Engaging Networks take from there. And if anyone asks some questions, then we'll have some time to take on those. So yeah, I'm going to pass it back to you, Ben, as we get into kind of the rapid fire sessions right here.
Yeah, thanks so much. So Molly, let's start with you. So you all had a bunch of really great sessions. So what is the name of this first session and one thing teams can act on this week that came out of it?
Oh, wow. I was going to tell you about a different session that I attended.
That's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a great session by Victoria Bepler from UPMC, Children's Hospital Foundation of Pittsburgh. Because I was thinking about like one thing you could act on right away. And she did a great session about testing your fundraising campaigns and ideas. So she specifically talked about her team's approach to using the Engaged Networks A/B testing tools to test subjects. She then tested her actual email buttons, the buttons inside her email and how she labeled them. And she also did a more distinct test on imagery. She had some assumptions going in. 2 of those tests came out to be conclusive, where she actually really learned perhaps like a different way they should be phrasing their subjects, where they get more opens, as well as labeling their buttons in a way that are more specific. And it was conclusive that, and they do that now moving forward in their practice. So when I think about, as Mike said, some newer organizations on the platform who didn't have those tools before, this is like an easy thing they can do this week. It is very easy to go in there. You're sending out emails. Go ahead and start your testing. Come up with your plan. Decide what you want to test. Start with the subject. It's the easiest one. And see if it improves your fundraising results.
Great. Thanks so much, Molly. So we're going to keep the lightning speed here going. Sydney, what question from the room surprised you, and how did you answer it?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And I actually, before I answer that question, I do want to pick up on something Molly said, which is that a lot of the advice that you're getting in sessions at the Engaging Networks Community Conference, you can go back to your team, to your Engaging Networks account, and implement tomorrow. So there are a lot of things that you can take from that conference. It's really heavy on actionable insight and not just theory. Where is digital marketing going? Although there's that as well. But I think for anyone looking for a good conference where you're going to take away practical improvements, it's a really good one to attend. And to that end, my session, which I had the pleasure of doing with Gaby Golub from World Wildlife Fund, as well as Duncan Stewart from Mission Wired, was focused on just that, small improvements for big gains. What tactics can we use Engaging Networks to try in our fundraising campaigns that can really deliver those results? And we got a good question. We had a bit in there about email progress bars. So inserting a GIF inside of your emails that animates a progress bar to show that you're getting closer to your fundraising goal. And someone asked, does that email progress bar relate to anything real, or is it just symbolic? And I think that's it wasn't exactly a surprising question, but I think it's a really good one, because it can be either, right? It can be this goal that you're working towards, but it can also, if it's a GIF, it's not going to be updating in real time, but you can still insert something like that into your email to generate excitement. And to really motivate someone to click through and see a real-time progress meter embedded on the Engaging Networks donation form itself. So I think my answer to that would be, don't feel limited by the strict numbers and the strict whether or not you have a giving day goal that you're working towards for end of year or something like that. Really try to get creative in the tactics and see how you can leverage animated GIFs as well as real-time progress bars to create excitement and increase conversions.
And if you're a Gen Xer, that's a GIF.
Well, Molly, coming back to you, speaking of common pitfalls, what's one common pitfall you saw and how to avoid it?
Yeah, the biggest thing is relying on old systems and technology. So, everyone gets so focused in completing their urgent job on the day-to-day basis that you don't take time to step back and look at your overall processes, your overall campaigns, the way you're doing things, and the capabilities of the system. That's one thing that's really good about Engaging Networks, is they're always putting out new release notes and always getting that directly into the academy. So there's no excuse to not know of what the system can do and how you could add that to improve your campaign. So I think that's one good thing about attending a conference like this, is that your team takes time away from their everyday work, although everybody sits there on their computers, and they really should fold up those laptops and pay attention, take the time to learn from other fundraisers through dialogue and case studies, see how the community is solving problems, and then go back. Oh, and then one other thing about that, how to avoid it. There was a great session by John Abdullah from Oxfam, and he talks about, he's an amazing manager, and he talks about how his team I think it might even be every week, or it's at least every 2 weeks, they have a retrospective where they actually take the time, they go in a room, they sit there, and they each have to come up with something from the last 2 weeks that they did that could be improved. And so in that way, they're continually iterating and process to their fundraising as well. So I thought that was a great tip that I learned about at the conference.
Yeah, retrospectives, pre-mortems, post-mortems, all these things that are super valuable, that are great things to do. You just got to find the time to do them. So, Sydney, what's a simple change that moved either revenue or engagement from one of the sessions that you were at or saw?
Yeah, I think there are so many. If you go back and watch the recordings of the sessions whenever they come out, if you do have the opportunity to do that, I do think it'd be worth doing that if you have any time in your, in between end of year planning and all of the work that's on your plate once you get back to your desk. But one thing that comes to mind is, and actually Zuri Group and Joe Hallisey, who was at Zuri Group, suggested this to me as a tactic to try when Zuri Group was my vendor, my last job when I was an Engaging Networks client. Asking for more in your custom gift strings is a great thing to test. That could just easily lift your revenue tomorrow, and really easy to implement if you're already using Next Suggested Gift in Engaging Networks, which is built-in functionality. Try just using a gift string that asks for more. So if you're asking for $25 now, try asking for $30. See if it does anything to your conversion rates. I think you can see results like we saw, which was a 35% increase in funds raised and no drop in conversion rates. And that's something really easy for sure.
Yeah. Molly, what would you test first if you were inside a nonprofit team next week?
So I have been trying really hard to get a client to do this. Maybe I can get, maybe you guys can help me. So it's about that ask, right? It's just like what Sydney said, right? You have to ask. If you want something, you need to ask someone for it. You can't just assume they're going to read your mind. And I really feel like the little arrow on the monthly giving is just not enough. So go ahead and try a reoccurring ask, an actual ask. So either using the Lightbox tool or make it the next step on your form. Make it step 2. That if they chose one time, step 2 gives them an actual ask. Are you sure? Can you really help us out this time with a monthly or an annual? Try it out, test it. It's easy changes to your donation pages to add a second step and give it a try. So these aren't things that you're going to need a developer for. The Engaging Networks page builder allows you to configure as many steps as you want. So there's not a lot of barriers to trying here, except for setting that up. And then using the A/B testing, you can actually still send them to your donation form, have them tested against this one. You don't have to go all in. Give it a shot.
Yeah, I remember when HRC rolled out annual giving like 15 years ago, and it was so just like, oh, we can do that, and like how cool. So, so Sydney, last kind of diving into a particular session here, what tool or workflow tweak did you really see that saves staff time? That was a big thing that came up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, we can't ignore the AI-sized elephant in the room on this question. That was definitely a big focus of a lot of the sessions. And I think to piggyback on what Molly said about not having a lot of barriers, I think that a lot of what the only barrier is for a lot of nonprofit professionals who are in Engaging Networks is time, right? There's limited staff, limited resources to accomplish and, explore all of the great tools you have available within Engaging Networks, within your tech stack, within your analytics tools. So one tip that I would definitely try out if you're nervous about AI or you haven't really explored that much yet, one thing you could try would be a new browser, an AI-powered web browser. OpenAI just launched one, but I've been using one called DIA, DIA, and that is a great way to interact with any window that you have open, whether it be Engaging Networks, Google Analytics, both. And you can actually chat with those tabs and pull up if you need to define, you don't know what the parameter is called in Google Analytics for a certain event that might happen within engaging networks, you can use that browser and it'll take a look at the page that you're on, synthesize all that data, and give you a really enriched result. So there's a lot that you can play around with there. It's hard for me personally to part with Chrome because I love Chrome, but now I've been using Dia for a couple of months and it's really improved my efficiency.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what it seems like I'm hearing across the board is, the one of the things that I hate the most when people say like do more with less. I think that's such like a cop out in like a capitalist society, right? But I do think there are opportunities for organizations to experiment smartly to find true efficiency gains and revenue like pushes that don't have to be all in. I think people kind of get sucked into this like world of like, we got to increase supporter engagement by 22%, and we can do one thing to do that. And it's like, actually, like, what if we tried like 10 things to do that and killed 5 of them that weren't working, and then took the other 5 and like finished them off, right? I think that's kind of a missing thing in our space. So Molly, what is the biggest learning that you're kind of thinking about as we go into not so much end of year, but moving into next year?
Well, this isn't so software related, I don't think, but
I think that's okay.
Kathy Keffer from Food and Water Watch presented on doing advocacy in these times, and it just clicked in my head because I was feeling really hopeless as the government has shut down the channels for advocates to email their Congress people and things like that, right? So were they listening anyway? We're not sure, but as those things have changed, I was feeling kind of hopeless, but she presented how important it is to still like different ways to advocate and how it's still important for your organization to inform people and influence them towards your cause and towards different types of actions. So anyway, I took that away as a hopeful note and also a mind shift for me to think about just new ways for nonprofits to advocate on their own behalf and get people behind them.
Absolutely. So Sydney, how about you? What's kind of a bigger step back, a big learning that you got here from as you're thinking about the conference?
Yeah, definitely shout out to Katie for doing that work in my hometown and big swing district of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Thank you for your advocacy there. I think that a big takeaway and a first step Monday morning can be, not necessarily technical, not software related, but build in time to debrief. So right now, set that meeting with your team for, the second week of January after everyone's recovered from the holidays. And build in that time to say, what went well, what caused us a lot of internal friction in our process, what can we automate, what can we improve? Because I think it's easy to get stuck and to just say, oh, I got to crank out this campaign. Now it's January. Now I need to start planning for my spring campaign. But we don't take that time to build in reflections on improving processes.
Right.
That can really save you a lot of time in the long run and maybe even raise more revenue too.
Yeah, Mike, how about you? What are you kind of thinking about big picture wise here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of been alluded to a little bit here. It's the idea of being a little bit more integrated in the way that we work with one another and being able to say, silo department over there and silo department over there. We could probably get a lot more out of our digital program or bring peer-to-peer efforts into our email program, bring our fundraisers into some really neat engagement opportunities that might not start with an ask, but maybe are something we design something around an engagement journey that eventually leads to an opportunity to give. So just sort of mixing technology that is integrated with kind of a new way of working and really looking at how we can be more integrated as organizations to get more out of the less that you were alluding to, Ben, that is unfortunately very true for a lot of folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if we were to zoom out now a little bit, I think definitely would be great to hear Valerie's take. I mean, you were at the conference and got to see a lot of different sessions. What felt really real for you? where do the sort of bottlenecks or opportunities for growth really appear in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Engaging Networks community is truly amazing. And every time I attend an EN event, I feel very inspired and energized. And I had the chance to speak with many of the attendees, and a common thread that I saw emerge was the uncertainty and the volatility of the nonprofit sector at this moment in time. So whether it's government funding cuts or the economy or the political landscape, we're all feeling it in some way. And so nonprofits now more than ever really need to do more with less, as Ben mentioned, and they may not be in a position to take risks with new approaches. So this is when we can really dial in and optimize the tools and approaches that we do have. And it's the task of nonprofit practitioners and vendors to be partners together to really understand those challenges and goals, and then work together with their strengths for each other. And throughout the conference, I saw this successful creativity and partnership to navigate this time. So like Molly, I was very encouraged to see a successful advocacy campaign in the first few months of the very turbulent new presidential administration. I learned from our friends at Foresight and Zuri Group about increasing donor engagement through quizzes and surveys, refining the donation thank you page experience, surprising results for different A/B tests, and different technical processes that will improve the donor experience. And then a really excellent session on fraud prevention. And then, of course, underpinning all of this is AI, and we're asking ourselves how we can utilize it safely and effectively. But what gives me hope the most is that donors have been showing up. They're meeting the moment, and it's because of these efforts that the practitioners and these partnerships have done to navigate this uncertain time, and that's what will carry us through.
And what's one practice that you'll bring back to a nonprofit team or you would recommend?
Speaking of winning strategies, storytelling remains to be one of the most powerful tools we have, and it's backed by neuroscience. So the storytelling keynote that we had from Cheryl Miller-Hauser was fantastic, and it just reinforced for me that human-centered storytelling is still the best way to connect with supporters and communicate impact, whether it's donors or advocates or volunteers. And I left with a refreshed practical framework for crafting stories that will help me refine my storytelling approach going forward. And that theme rang out through the conference as well. Even technical details like improving segmentation and email deliverability so that donors can receive these good stories. That it was very impactful, and I'm excited to use that going forward.
Yeah, wonderful. Mike, flipping back over and thinking about the platform, what are some of the top needs you heard from users in the hallway as a technology vendor?
Yeah, and I just want to very quickly kind of piggyback on the comment about fraud prevention being one of the more bump-in main stage presentations that really kind of caught me off guard. But it is something that is so important for us as a sector to be able to maintain our reputations and earn trust of donors. That's just not a small thing, and it's not going away. Yeah, I think that had a lot of great conversations, and it was really neat to hear that folks are trying to get increasingly sophisticated with how they use data, and that's great. We've come out with a bunch of new reporting and report building features in this year that we're going to continue to build on with input, like I said earlier, from our clients. If there's certain kinds of reports that folks want to see come out of the box, we can actually program those so that they're pretty easy, maybe a click or two away from getting out. For folks who are trying to do more with less, knowing where they should be directing their limited resources to is so important, and the data can inform those kinds of decisions. This is kind of like a longer tail, but certainly the buzz around sort of SMS being a source of growth for a lot of digital programs over the last number of months. This was something that was very big at Bridge. We've continued to make SMS a bigger and bigger part of engaging networks, and it's now available within automations and journeys that folks are building in conjunction with email. And we're going to be adding some really neat functionality to our SMS in 2026. I won't give that away anything more, but
I almost did, so I'm glad you said something.
Yeah, it's something that we are very excited about to bring to life in the first half of 2026. But I saw some really, really great examples of what folks are doing to try and get leverage out of the tool. And Mon Sekdalan, who is certainly a pro using the platform, building automations within the membership program at National Trust for Historic Preservation to sort of get away from manually sending broadcast emails to supporters who are at different stages of their membership journey. I do want to just really quickly go back and shout out the great work that was done by Sydney and Gaby to do something that is really fun and easy in terms of just building these page flows that get you started in one place. It's really fun and engaging and moving you over to an opportunity to give. And then Molly's presentation with Lindsay Queener from Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, definitely a big step in terms of customizing the symbolic giving module. But for folks who are looking for a new way to kind of reshape how someone can give digitally, they don't have to go all the distance that Molly and the Zuri Group went with that customization, which is beautiful. But it's a great opportunity to go and get into a new way of giving digitally that maybe folks haven't really tapped into before. Last thing I really just want to highlight and is maybe less of a product and platform need. It was ironic that at the same time as our conference, there was another company that produced a whole lot of donation pages on behalf of a bunch of organizations that didn't necessarily ask for them. And this isn't about throwing shade in this moment, but the point that I'm trying to get to is that I think the conference reaffirmed why it's important to know who you're working with, and within community, within the client community, but it's also important to know the real people who are ultimately there, ideally looking out for you. And that was something that was really obvious to me as a first timer to ENCC D.C. actually.
Yeah. I think out of this crew, I think you were the first timer. So, that's exciting.
I love it. I raise my hand for all kinds of these great events. They're a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, as we come here to the close and just, taking a look over at the Q&A and probably grabbing a question out of there just here momentarily, I think my big, takeaway kind of, trying to do that step back and think about the conference. And, as someone who, was very intimately involved with them, for years, when I had the pleasure of working at, at Engaging Networks, this was really one of probably the best done conferences that I've seen out of the company, which was just so exciting to see the maturity of it, the scale of it. I know I was talking to Austin, and originally we wanted to do this before the conference as like some marketing to kind of get people hyped up. And he was like, actually, we're going to hit capacity and we probably need to find like a bigger location next year. And so I think if you're at all, interested in being a part of the community and joining in, like it's such a great place to be, and, would highly encourage that. So, as we look to wrap here in the next 2 minutes, we're big on starting on time and ending on time. Just kind of one question that is, dangling out there. And so, Valerie, thinking of yourself with like your, nonprofit shoes, I'm really just looking for what right now would you give as like the best piece of advice for a nonprofit as they are looking ahead over the next few months?
Oh, wow. That's a big question, but I think
it
Yeah. I really love the advice about the retrospect. I've successfully utilized that. It really helps you identify what's working and what's not. And so when you have limited time, when you have limited resources and unknowns, you can really invest in what's working. You can identify what's working. And then you can use, you can experiment, you can test, and you'll know where you might be able to get some more gains. And it does take that retrospect. So I agree with that. That's already been said.
Amazing. Thank you, Valerie, so much. And thank you to Mike, Molly, Sydney for joining for this and for, throwing this all together pretty quickly on the back end, just to give you like a peek behind the curtain. We think this is something that we'd love to be doing a whole lot more of, just kind of bringing you a more regular view of kind of what's happening at these conferences that, all of these companies are regularly attending or putting on, and making sure that you know what's going on. We will sign off with that. I'm Ben Childers. I'm co-founder and CEO of Stratovation Partners, and I was joined by Valerie, Mike, Sydney, and Kelly. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.